This is why you should not take Warren Buffett words at face value. When it comes to value investing, his words are almost like old age wisdom that everyone knows. I'm sure you know, but it's very good. It looks very good on the poster. But whether it's applicable or not, sometimes I really doubt it, because in the modern day investing, I think we need to adapt, tweak it a bit and adapt. Not to say value investing doesn't work anymore, but we really need to be smart to adapt to it. Now let's go through these 5 most common investing mantra that we should not take at face value. Now, number 1, it's about his very famous mantra. Rule number 1, never lose money, and rule number 2, never forget rule number 1. Now the thing is, if you look at his go to his holdings company, Berkshire Hathaway, just can Google that, and this is taken from his annual report. Annual reports available on the website. You can see that very impressive return, and it's well known for having almost like how much, like 50 years or so, more than 50 years of annual compound return of 21%, which is over here. Now although he say that you never lose money, but if you have a portfolio that is heavily in equity, there is no way why you can't lose money when the recession comes. Now, for example, in 2002, you can see that his portfolio that's down about -4%. Of course, it was not as down as the rest of the market, because it has a very low exposure to technology stock, which we call it a dot-com burst. Yes, so when the dot-com burst, actually he's not heavy in technology stocks. He's well known to not buy into technology stock because he don't really understand it. Now, the other thing is, of course, from 2008, there's this massive world financial crisis that most of us are aware of. His stock portfolio was down by 1/3. Now, what it means by this? 1/3. So again, if you look at this again, it actually contradicts with what he say, because you cannot avoid from losing money in a portfolio where if you are heavily invested in equity, and as for example, if you are very heavy in oil and gas counters, you lose money now. Also in 2005, although there's no so-called recession, but still, due to the market, its portfolio actually lose money in it's about -12%. So that's why it's possible to lose money in your portfolio if you're having equity. And even if you are Warren Buffett, Berkshire Hathaway, your portfolio will not, and I repeat, it will not be spared. Now just reflect it back a bit. Actually in 2005, when his portfolio lost about 12%, actually is underperformed the iShares, the broad market US ETF, because this actually is still in the region of positive 1%. So as you can see, just take Warren Buffett first rule number 1 mantra at a pinch of salt. Now the other thing that I want to highlight is the thing that you might or might not know, why you should not take Warren Buffett words at face value, because as respectful he is, he's also still human, and he still make mistake. The most famous one, the most recent one, would be what he admitted as a huge mistake in when he invests in Tesco, and you can see that source from the Guardian costing about up to probably half a billion pounds in 1 year. Again, actually contradicts with what he say over here. Now, why we have a belief that it's very important not to lose money in your portfolio? You look at the scenario here, what I call as scenario A. This is scenario A and the scenario B. Yes. So the thing is, you would be very surprised to see that if in scenario A, whereby if you have a retirement portfolio of 1 million, okay, so you start it off with 1 million, and when you do retire on the very first year, the market dropped about minus 30%, and your portfolio was down minus 30%. The second year, your portfolio assumed it was down about 20%. Okay, and imagine these first 2 years after you retire is a recession time, and by the third year, your portfolio would be up again 10%. The fourth year up again 20%, and the fifth year will be up again 20%. So as you can see, okay, in the 5 years, okay, you average out the return is pretty much the same. Okay, you have minus 50% in the first 2 years and a plus accumulatively 50% in the third to fifth year. So if you have a 1 million retirement portfolio, just for this simple computation sake, and you say that my annual needs to retire in 100,000, whatever currency that you want it to be. Now in the first year of retirement, now imagine if your portfolio was hit by a negative 30%. Your portfolio would have lost 300,000, and it will be left about 700,000, and it will end up to about 600,000. So the next year, okay, the 600,000, there will be another 20% loss. It will come about 480,000. But still, again, from this retirement nest egg, you need to withdraw. Okay, withdraw 100k to sustain your day-to-day expenses. So by the end of second year, it will be down at 380,000. So I'm not going to go through the third and fourth year, but since you can review this video again, actually can do a mental calculation. But the point I want to make is at the end of fifth year, okay, your portfolio the remaining balance at the end of the fifth year about 238,000. Now you compare this with scenario B, whereby we just reverse the sequence of return. Now imagine in the first year of retirement, you actually gain 20%. In the second year, you gain another 20%. In the third year, you gain another 10%. But in the fourth and fifth year, that is where the recession happens. So your portfolio are losing minus 20% on the fourth year, and in the fifth year, minus 30%. You can see the sequence is exactly the reverse, but the percentage is exactly the same. And how would that your 1 million retirement portfolio perform, assuming everything being the same except the reversal of this sequence, is that at the end of fifth year, you will end up with slightly more than 500,000. Now you compare it back with this one, now that is double the amount. So that is why it's not about losing how much, it's also about the sequence of loss. If possible, you do not want your portfolio to have any negative at all. But if that happens, you can see that the sequence of loss is so important. Now, if it is unfortunate that whatever happens, the recession happens at the point when you retire, you can see that it is really it's a difference between living very luxuriously or living very poorly. That is why this cannot be taken lightly, and you cannot be taken at the face value. Now moving on to next, what are the other face value words by Warren Buffett that you cannot take at face value? Now the thing is, he famously said that only buy something that you'll be perfectly happy to hold if the market shut down for 10 years. Now hypothetically, if market shut down for 10 years, you do not really you do not really want to sleep on it and just do not care on what the portfolio is going to perform, because that is akin to being very lazy. Okay, you're ignoring the economy, you're ignoring the business you invest in, you're ignoring the business cycle, and this is really I cannot say why you can be any lazier than this. Now, You can see that Warren Buffett famously is being known to read a lot. Now, this is, even though he say these words, but you could not take it out of context to say that he doesn't read a lot. He does, because in 10 years, this will be a very vast change of business cycle. Technology comes, and old technology becomes obsolete. You cannot just sit on whatever invest in and not do any homework, because you might understand, you're perfectly happy to buy certain business when you buy it, but in the 10 years that business would have gone down the drain. So what he means by that, he foresee what he buys is a company like Visa, Amex, this company that he foresee new technology is not going to affect much of this kind of business model. But it does not mean that you don't need to know the entire business cycle and how the economy is doing, and adjust your portfolio accordingly. Because the principle is, in business, nothing is permanent. We call that impermanence principle. Things are being disruptive. You are number one today, tomorrow will be gone if you do not evolve, to suit the market wants. Now, the other thing that you would really not recommend to take Warren Buffett words at out of context, at face value. Now, before I go to number 3, now the contradiction, I want to talk about the contradiction of him saying this, is that he say that I'm a better investor because I'm a businessman, and this very word tells you that no businessman will actually invest into something and go to sleep for the next 10 years without reviewing his portfolio and how his portfolio are actually affected by the business condition. And the other thing is also because I don't want you to think the fact that when he said he invests in business, is very different from the way we invest in business. When we invest in business, we are just a minority shareholder. But when Warren Buffett invests in business, he essentially, for example, if he buy a Visa and he become the major shareholder, and you can know that he can just walk into Visa HQ and the CEO will lay out the red carpet for him. That is the kind of business. When he buys in, he is almost like the owner, the major shareholder. We are just a minority shareholder. So you cannot really apply that. You cannot really apply that. If you buy a shares of Apple, and if he buy a shares of Apple with his Berkshire Hathaway did, he can just walk out to Apple HQ and say hi to Tim Cook. Hey, can I have a free iPad? But if we were to buy a share of Apple, do you think we can just walk into Apple store and just get, hey, I'm a minority shareholder of Apple, I want a free iPad? It just doesn't work that way. So next, we will continue on a few more investing mantras that you should not take at face value. So stay tuned for the next section.